Prince of Persia for the NES stands as one of the most iconic and influential games of its time, originally developed by Jordan Mechner in 1989. While it was initially released on the Apple II, the game's popularity led to a wave of ports to various platforms, including the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1992. This classic action-adventure game introduced the world to the now legendary story of a nameless prince, quick reflexes, and breathtaking acrobatics, all set against the mysterious backdrop of an Arabian palace. With a combination of puzzle solving, tight platforming, and combat, it left an indelible mark on the gaming industry and set the foundation for future action platformer games. The original version of Prince of Persia was the brainchild of Jordan Mechner, a young game designer who sought to create something unique. Inspired by the fluid movement of martial artists, gymnasts, and the swashbuckling heroes of classic adventure movies, Mechner wanted to create a game that felt realistic and dynamic. To achieve this, he used a process called rotoscoping, where he filmed his younger brother performing various athletic moves and then painstakingly animated them frame by frame to capture smooth, lifelike animations. The development of the game was an arduous journey, as Mechner essentially coded the entire game himself over the span of 4 years. The result was a fluid and elegant game that featured a realistic, almost lifelike animation style, unheard of at the time. When Prince of Persia was finally ported to the NES in 1992, Mechner worked closely with the development team to ensure the animations and gameplay remained as faithful as possible to the original, despite the hardware limitations of the NES. What made the NES version of Prince of Persia stand out was its remarkable technical achievements. The hardware of the NES was less advanced than the computers for which the game was initially designed, yet the port managed to retain the spirit and fluidity of the original. The developers managed to maintain the game's signature smooth animations and complex level design while simplifying some of the graphics and mechanics to fit the 8-bit platform. The story is both simple and timeless, drawing heavily from classic tales of Arabian Nights and other Middle Eastern folklore. Players take on the role of a nameless prince who must navigate a deadly labyrinth of traps and enemies to rescue the imprisoned princess. She has been captured by the evil Jaffar, the Sultan's vizier, who wants to seize control of the kingdom. Jaffar gives the princess an ultimatum: marry him within 60 minutes or face certain death. This 60-minute time limit is one of the game's defining elements. It creates a sense of urgency as the player navigates treacherous environments, avoids deadly traps, and fights through waves of enemies. The story unfolds gradually as the prince descends deeper into the dungeons, facing greater dangers and obstacles along the way. Though the narrative is minimal, the atmosphere and tension creates a rich experience that drives the player forward. It is an action platformer that masterfully blends precise platforming with challenging puzzles and combat. The game's most revolutionary feature is its realistic movement. The prince's animations were groundbreaking for the era, with smooth running, jumping, climbing, and rolling that looked almost lifelike. This sense of realism made the platforming more immersive, but also more challenging. The prince's movements have momentum and weight, meaning that timing jumps and landings is critical. Mistimed actions often lead to perilous falls or the activation of deadly traps. Players have to navigate a series of increasingly complex levels, filled with crumbling floors, spike traps, and platforms that require precise timing. Each screen in the NES version was carefully designed to challenge the player's reflexes and problem-solving skills, with the added pressure of the 60-minute countdown always ticking in the background. The combat is straightforward yet satisfying. The prince starts the game without a weapon, but eventually acquires a sword that allows him to face off against Jaffar's minions. Sword fights are one-on-one encounters, requiring players to parry, block, and strike with careful timing. The enemies increase in difficulty as the game progresses, making each fight a test of patience and strategy. Unlike many platformers of the time, where combat was fast and frenetic, Prince of Persia took a more methodical approach, focusing on precise button inputs and learning enemy patterns. This slower pace gave the game a unique flavor compared to the frantic action games of the era. Puzzles are a core component of the game, often involving pressure plates, hidden doors, and other environmental interactions that require careful observation. Players must figure out how to navigate complex layouts, activate switches, and open pathways to progress. exploration is rewarded, as there are shortcuts and hidden areas scattered throughout the levels that can aid in the player's progress. Finding health potions or bypassing dangerous obstacles becomes essential as the countdown continues to tick. One of the most celebrated aspects is its pioneering use of rotoscoping, a technique that Jordan Mechner used to bring realistic animation to the game. This technique, which involved tracing over live-action footage frame by frame, was a labor-intensive process but resulted in the prince's fluid and lifelike movement, setting a new standard for video game animation. The game's unique 60-minute countdown was both a source of excitement and frustration for many players. This time limit added a sense of urgency to the game, making every mistake feel costly. Players had to balance careful exploration with the need to move quickly, leading to a tense and exhilarating experience that kept them on their toes. Prince of Persia was initially a modest success, but its popularity skyrocketed with ports to consoles like the NES and Sega Genesis. The game's simple yet engaging design allowed it to be adapted to multiple platforms, each with slight variations to accommodate hardware limitations. The NES version stands out as one of the most beloved ports due to its faithful adaptation of the original gameplay. The influence can be seen in countless platformers and action-adventure games that followed. It laid the groundwork for the Tomb Raider series, Another World, and the modern Prince of Persia reboot, which continued to explore acrobatics, puzzle solving, and narrative-driven gameplay. Despite being over 3 decades old, the game remains a landmark in video game history. Its influence is still seen today, not just in platforming mechanics, but in its approach to storytelling and game design. The original NES version is a testament to how a game with a simple concept, rescue the princess, defeat the villain, can be elevated by innovative design and attention to detail. Translating Prince of Persia to the NES was no small feat. The original game's fluid animations were taxing on more advanced computers, so developers had to adapt and simplify the graphics to fit the NES's 8-bit hardware. Despite the limitations, the NES version managed to capture the essence of the original, thanks to creative use of sprites and smart level design. This port became known for being one of the better adaptations, preserving the game's spirit while making it accessible to a broader audience. The port also had to navigate the challenge of creating realistic character movements within the confines of an 8-bit system. Though the animations were not as detailed as the original Apple II version, they still managed to retain a sense of fluidity that was unmatched on the NES at the time. This achievement was a technical triumph, considering the constraints of the hardware. Prince of Persia for the NES is a game that left an indelible mark on the history of video games. Its fluid animations, challenging platforming, and compelling yet simple story made it a standout title in an era dominated by fast-paced action games. The NES version managed to capture the magic of the original while adapting it to a console that defined a generation of gamers. The game's focus on precise movements, calculated combat, and exploration, all within the confines of a ticking clock, created a unique blend of tension and excitement. This experience made it not just a game, but a pioneer in storytelling and design. It's a title that continues to be remembered fondly, inspiring countless sequels, spin-offs, and remakes, proving that the tale of a daring prince who risks everything for love is one that transcends generations. Whether you're a retro gaming enthusiast or a fan of modern platformers, the legacy of Prince of Persia remains clear. It's a timeless classic that changed the way we think about storytelling, animation, and game design. For the NES, it stands as a testament to what developers could achieve on limited hardware, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in a video game. Prince of Persia was more than just a rescue mission. It was the beginning of a legacy that continues to enchant and challenge players even today.